have arrived at the home of the jar car. With me is both John and Aaron Reid. They were kind enough to let us in here to look this great little machine over, and we're going to learn a little bit of the history about it and what makes this girl tick. All right, so we have John Reid here, of course, and we have his son, Aaron Reid, who drives the car currently, right?
Yes, sir.
And
it's too stupid fast for me.
I saw the videos, and I'll tell you, like, I'm not afraid of speed, but that car is quick, and I'll tell you, you got nerves of steel, that's for sure. And a really good time. Your response time looks really fast.
I feel like I'm one of the slowest reaction times in the group, but
is that right? Eh?
Yeah. I find it. I'm always practicing it. I'm always trying to, modify my technique a little bit to try and get a little bit quicker. But it doesn't seem what doesn't matter what I do. It's
well, I know one thing for sure. I watched the reaction of both officials standing at the line as well as some of the spectators, and there was a lot of holy, pardon my Frenches, right?
Yeah. It goes like a bear, but it's as far as the foot brake pro tree reaction time, it's difficult to try and get it under a 1.0 reaction time. Like it's something that I'm always working on, and luckily the car kind of gets me out of some jams if it's a bad reaction time.
It makes enough power to drive around somebody.
Yeah.
Your camera just went.
That's all right. I guess that's an edit point.
Yeah.
So you mentioned foot brake. So, pardon me. So this doesn't have a trans brake per se?
No, there's really no electronics in this car whatsoever. As far as leaving on the line, it's manually put it in first gear and then basically just wait for the tree, add an idle, and foot to the floor, shift it by hand. There's no assist, there's no electronic shifting, there's no two steps, no trans brakes, no nothing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're a little bit old school per se, right?
Very old school.
Which I guess makes sense in a 33 Willies we're talking about here, right?
Now, it's the group we run into. I mean, the rules are old school.
Okay.
So it's basically what they tell us is if they didn't make it in the 60s, you don't run it.
Right.
So, now mind you, that can be massaged.
Yeah.
A bit. But,
and we live in a different world with different tire technology and different shock absorber technology. Like, things have come a long way. Even if you're trying to emulate the 60s, modern equipment is still modern equipment, and that's why these cars are so much quicker than they were. Even though we're still shooting for like 1967 rules,
right,
and similar to what was actually run in the 60s, they're significantly quicker because of advancements and everything.
Yeah, just grip with tires, and of course your suspension and everything is much better.
And many decades of guys coming before us figuring out how to make a car like this go down the track, right? I mean, we're building on the shoulders of giants that did this in the 60s.
Right. So you more have, you have a little bit of current stuff, but you still have the look of the old always, right?
Yeah.
And everybody else who runs in your class would have a similar body style and that as well?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
And you say shift. Now is how many speed is the transmission?
It's a power glide, so it's just low gear, high gear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what's your shift point, like RPM wise?
About 7,500 for this engine.
Oh wow. Okay.
There are guys running different. Small blocks are obviously going to shift a lot higher. The Hemis are a whole different animal on their own, but for us, it's about a 7,500 RPM car. It's happy at that point.
Okay. But on the line, you leave right from idle.
Yeah, it leaves from idle. It's got a pretty loose converter and it makes a lot of power. So I mean, it really screams at the hit. It's way up there in the RPM range, right at the snap of the throttle, and that gets the blower turning and making boost immediately. And so it's that's the part of the reason why it's so violent is.
And we had to take some away.
Yeah.
Like last summer, we took some gear out of the transmission because it was just an animal on the line. So we've softened the hit.
Okay.
But down track.
Yeah.
She motors.
Yeah, were you actually breaking the tires free at the line, or it was just kind of
loading them up?
Yeah, you want to break the tires free a little bit on the line. Like, you want to have some wheel speed right at the hit. If you absolutely dead hook it, it's just going to turn into a big square and it's going to wobble and do all kinds of violent stuff. If you can
shake your fillings out.
Yeah,
right.
we went through that. We went through that for quite a while. These things, like every track, every day, every weekend seems like it can be a bit of a different animal.
Sure.
Even though we have an idea of what the car is going to do, all the variables that change week to week really can throw a wrench at you. And we put new slicks on this thing, and we went from having a car that was just running deadly consistent high 490s, mid 490s, We put tires on it, and we went through like 3/4 of a season of violent tire shake. 'Cause
Wow,
all of a
eh?
sudden we had a bunch more traction, and we couldn't get that tire to spin on the line, and it just shook like a alcohol funny car. I can get you some video of some slow motion, high resolution on the tire where it's just doing things that you would never think a tire could do.
Of course, that makes it difficult to control and everything else, right?
Oh yeah, you see it in slow motion, and it seems like it takes a long time to happen. But for me in the car, I mean, it's literally like foot to the floor, this real violent motion where the car wants to hop around and it shakes like crazy, and I pedal it and then make a pass that might be a low 5.
Wow.
So it's still, I can, a lot of times I can pedal through it and get it down the track, but that took us a long time to figure out what to change to get rid of it entirely, and luckily with help from friends, we figured it out.
And this car is a fairly short wheelbase, right? So that also plays a factor in maintaining your control as well, right?
Yeah. The shorter the wheelbase, the easier they are to come around on you.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, what class? Are we okay to mention the class?
AA gas.
AA gas. Okay, so is that like a traveling class, or is it?
Yeah, there's probably 2 or 3 groups that we kind of mesh together with in the States.
Okay.
Here in Ontario, there's only 3 of these cars.
Oh, is that right? Eh?
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Usually, if we want to go play, we've got to hit south of the border.
Yeah.
Or they got to come to us.
Yeah, we've been really lucky with a lot of our American friends really having supported us trying to do it at TMP. When we got the first invite up there, and we reached out to our friends that are, some of them are, middle of Ohio, it's 4 or 5 hour haul. Like, will you come up here and support our group? Absolutely. And then they had the time of their lives and they've been coming back for 3 years now and just love the TMP crowd, and the Canada Day show is just awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Eh?
It's over the top.
Yeah, and that's all part of the community, right, with the racers. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to wonder, Canadians don't tend to have the top running cars. When you guys go down to the States, are you fairly competitive with the rest of them?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I don't know, there's 1 or 2 cars that can probably give us a run for the money.
Yeah.
But,
It takes a long time to figure these cars out and get your program really dialed in, and we have a little bit of a head start on a couple other guys that are 100% going to be right there beside us when they've had enough time to get their program figured right out.
Certainly.
Right, so we might have a little bit of an advantage over some guys right now, but it never lasts. Everybody is making improvements, and there's guys that weren't right on our heels 2 years ago were this summer.
Wow.
Right, so like domination never lasts. We may have had a few good summers where we took some wins and went to other races and really kicked some ass, but it never lasts.
Right. Yeah, because of course guys are always growing with their cars as well, right?
Sure.
And,
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, excuse me. So, I guess everybody is really going to want to know about this monster that's sticking up in front of the windshield here.
It's pretty simple.
Is it? I don't know. It
Pretty
doesn't look that simple.
and really, there's not a lot of exotica in this engine. It's a bow tie steel block.
Okay.
GM 990 heads that you can buy over the counter.
Okay.
Diamond pistons, which we paid high dollar for.
Right.
Howard's rods,
Bill Miller.
Bill Miller rods, which we paid big money for. It's just got an Eagle crank in it, and it's the same stroke as a 396 Chevy.
Okay.
Really short stroke,
Yeah.
big piston.
The class that we race in is limited to 500 cubic inches.
Okay.
So everybody is going to be under 500 inches. And
Yeah.
there's several different combinations as far as building a high horsepower blower motor.
Right.
So ours is a big bore, short stroke, high rev engine.
Oh, okay. And it looks like those are cast heads, eh? So.
Cast iron heads.
And that's a requirement as well.
Pretty much. There's a couple of aluminum head cars that are sneaking into the group.
Okay.
They don't bother us. We don't see a big performance, kind of a kick that they get over us. And you know what? It's as long as we can keep parity in the group.
Yes.
Like same with the Hemis. This thing here is a fuel miser, believe it or not. And the Hemis can't get enough.
Oh yeah.
They just they need more fuel than, because we're limited to a cast pump. They can't get enough fuel out of that pump.
Oh, okay.
So we'll run a return jet. They don't run a jet. they blank it out and they take all the fuel they can get.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, you know, it's, but, you know, they've asked if they can go to maybe a slightly bigger billet pump. And we've kind of thought, well, hey, at the end of the day, as much as it is a race, it's also a show.
Right.
So we don't want all of our friends blowing their crap up.
Yeah.
You know, like leaning their motors out because they can't get enough fuel or whatever.
Sure.
So, you know, we all kind of discuss things, and we all, when we're happy, we're happy. You know, let's
Okay.
go out and run.
There's a balance between modernizing and letting performance get too carried away, and also trying to keep the nostalgic aspect of it.
Certainly.
You know, so everybody with one of these cars comes to the rule table with a different thing that they might want to see get changed to help their program, and everybody's kind of got to be on board with it. And in the past, that's been a problem with trying to get everybody to agree on a rule set when people are super competitive.
Yeah.
And you don't want to give an inch away to your competitor by letting them try and change the rules to make their car more competitive than yours. But when it comes down to somebody, you know, blowing up engines every year because they're just running out of fuel and they're trying to be competitive, you don't want to see that either.
Absolutely.
You know, these are our friends, and they're also, there's only so many cars to go around, and you don't want to see your whole season go down the drain because half the people in the field blew their cars up on the first weekend out.
Absolutely.
You know, so are we going to are we going to be on board with like letting someone run a bigger fuel pump, which could potentially make more power?
Yeah.
But they're not going to blow their car up. Well, let's see where that goes, and let's, you know.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And of course, cost sometimes plays a role in all this too. Other guys may not be interested in spending more money than they already are. I mean, these cars cost a lot of money to build, to maintain, right? So, yeah, so we were talking about mechanical fuel pumps. This is all that you're allowed in class?
We run it. It's a direct drive right off of the camshaft.
Yeah, just like your typical
right in
pumps.
behind the cell here.
Yeah.
The rest of the engine, I wouldn't say it's exotic, but it's unique. You know, like the blower, it's a Hampton blower, which they were made in California. Don Hampton, that's made of magnesium.
Yeah, it's a very cool color, actually.
Well, that's Dow coating.
Okay.
It's called Dow 7. And a lot of the funny cars and top fuel cars and even AA gas cars ran that coating on their blowers back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm pretty sure you can still get it done, but it's going to be like hen's teeth, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And with the injector on top there, that's an Enderley barn door. Enderley only made them from 1958 to 1962.
Is that right, eh?
They only made 220
of those.
Of those injectors.
Well, they look like carbs. Like I'll tell you right now, they look like a pair of carbs.
It's
But yeah, there's way too many lines there.
Yeah. No, that's just two great big square throats.
Okay.
It sucks in, and the more air, you know, every engine is basically an air pump.
Right.
You know, so the more air you can put through it,
Yeah.
you know, without hurting it, the better.
So they're kind of the equivalent of like a 4-barrel carb volume-wise, or
Way bigger.
Way
bigger.
Way
Do you know
bigger.
the
So
CFM by any chance?
What's that?
The CFM, do you know?
I know it's about 41 square centimeters, I believe. Isn't that
Square
what it-
inches.
41 square inches, my mistake.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, it
Well,
would
that's heavy.
probably like 4,000 CFM, somewhere in that range.
Wow.
It's-
Yeah. And how many injectors are actually in each? That's 2 units I'm looking at, right?
No, that's one injector.
One big casting.
Oh, okay. It looks like a space between the two of them. I see what you're
No,
saying.
it's one injector and eight fuel nozzles.
8 nozzles. Yeah. Okay.
One nozzle per cylinder.
One nozzle per cylinder.
And roughly, how much fuel do you burn in a run?
A little over a gallon.
No, 2 gallons probably.
Yeah, with the burnout.
Burn out and everything,
Yeah.
2 gallons.
Oh, yeah.
Start up, burnout, pass.
Yeah.
Close to 2 gallons.
And you're running regular pump gas? Or
Ethanol.
methanol. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that what most cars in that class run?
Yeah. You can't be competitive.
Yeah.
If you come out with gasoline, you're going to be also lame. But
They're gonna watch you race.
yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't think anyone's ever tried it in our class. Like, recently.
Spunky was running gas. Yeah, he was slow.
Yeah, with what carburetors do. Right?
Yeah.
And do you find you have to do regular rebuilds on this engine, or?
The last rebuild, we heard it at the end of 2018.
Okay.
And even though we heard it, you know, we took it back out. We actually sheared the input shaft.
Right on the
transmission.
right on the shift. So right at our max RPM.
It's sitting on the shelf over here. and it just looked like a razor blade went through it.
Oh yeah.
Right? And Aaron shut it off, but I mean,
It zinged the engine.
it synced the engine like to the moon.
Essentially going into neutral under
She
high
went
high
free.
load.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
and
free
it just
wheeled.
over revved like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
We changed the input shaft, took it back out the next day. Made 2 passes in the 480s.
Oh, we ran our personal best with that engine after we had synced it.
After we
Wow.
and
Yeah.
when we brought it home and took it apart, there was 6 vent valves, 2 much lifters,
A lot of
Oh,
carnage.
yeah.
It came apart.
hairline
but-
crack in the crankshaft.
Oh really? Oh yeah. She
Yeah.
didn't like that. Eh?
No.
Yeah.
And it usually makes what, about 12 to 14 pounds of boost, and that's in the burnout,
Right.
right? And when we checked the boost gauge, it made like 24 pounds.
Oh,
So we knew the engine just
Yeah.
went
Spiked.
forever, right? Yeah.
So you're driving the car, but I'm guessing that you just didn't get born into this world and wind up jumping in the seat of a car. You must have grown up around some racing, right?
Yep. So my dad raced back in the 70s, late 70s. Got out of drag racing for the frustrations that every drag racer experiences of the hurry up and wait and just the frustrations of racing. Got into riding motorcycles for a long time, and then when I was 8 or 9, he took me to Lancaster and we saw junior dragsters. And he kind of put the bug in my ear and said, "Is that something you'd like to do?" And we got into junior racing, and it's been 25 years since then that we've been racing together, everything from 11-second bracket cars up until when we both sold what we had and went partners on building this. And it started out as a bracket car too, and it's turned into this monster that it is now.
Oh, okay. So yeah, this was quite a different program to start with the same car.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
we started that engine over there in the corner with the injectors on it, that's not the
yes.
exact engine, but that's the 3rd generation of the injected engines that we ran. Bracket racing, running high 5s, high 9s, like 980s, 990s in the quarter, nostalgia bracket racing all over. A lot of the same races we race at now, just in a different class back then. And,
Right.
In 2017, I think it was 2017, we said let's build a blower motor.
And has the car itself, because of how old it is and what it is, has that kept you in specific divisions, or can you run against, like, say, a 70s Nova or whatever? When
Well,
you're
we can run
bracket
against
racing?
anything we want, but I
Yeah.
mean, we built this for the AA gas class,
Right.
right? To just go out and bracket race it, it's just putting more wear and tear on it that we don't really want. We did go bracket racing once at St. Thomas, and
We couldn't get a hold of the track.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
that
couldn't
was,
get a
that
hold
was
of
our,
the
our
track.
bad more than
Yeah.
anything.
but I mean, there was $3,500 on the line, right? So we thought, let's take some blower out of it and go bracket racing.
Right.
So
I think we dialed a 5.0 and I was running somebody that was running like a 650, 660. So I mean, he was a second and a half down the track when I left, and then it was just spinning the tire, pedal,
Oh, yeah.
trying to catch him all the way down the
Right.
track.
And just for people who don't know what bracket racing is, you want to give us a quick, you're racing your own set time for the day, right?
Yeah, you're banking on running the number you pick out of your head.
Yeah.
You figure if your
Yeah.
car can run a 990, then you dial 990 on the windshield.
Yeah.
And you go up and try to run that 990.
And it's a handicap system essentially to allow a slower car and a faster car to still have a competitive chance at winning, right? That's the whole idea behind it.
Right.
But when there's a big gap between one car and another, interesting things can happen. So
It's bizarre to watch. I mean, of course, I come from dirt track, so everything drag racing is kind of new to me. And when I watch this bracket racing, and like you say, one guy takes off, he's halfway down the track, and I'm
Yeah.
like, did this guy fall asleep at the wheel, or?
I've got 2 videos on my YouTube that you should check out where I'm spotting somebody like 3 or 4 seconds in the quarter mile. There's one where I think he's dialed a high 12 or a low 13, and I've got a 970.
Oh.
And he's about the 8th mile before I leave, and it comes down to less than a 10.
And at the end, they're like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy to watch, and actually, it's kind of exciting to watch because you just
Yeah.
think, how could this guy possibly even catch this guy?
Yeah.
But yet, it does work out in the end by the numbers, right?
The biggest monkey wrench in racing like that is the guy behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's where you've got to be on your game. You've got to cut that good light.
Yes.
And so many of those races are won and lost right on the line. Like whoever cuts that better light.
Yeah, because your time matters not just at the end, but at the beginning as well, right? Because that dialed-in time, if it's 10 seconds as an example.
Oh yeah, if he cuts a 5.0 light and you cut a 1.5 light,
Yeah.
right? Then
You might be in trouble.
like down track, that little, 1/100th of a second or 300ths of a second that you kind of slept a bit,
Right.
that multiplies down track.
Absolutely.
So you end up losing by a full second, even though you were only,
Half a
20,
second.
30, 100ths.
Right. Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
So here's a put you on the spot question, John. Have you ever driven this?
No,
No.
I have not. I've never sat in it and fired it.
Oh, is that right? Eh?
I don't think I have.
I don't think so. Like, when we first got into this car together, it was a partnership at first. When we both sold our cars and we put money into it to build it, and as time went on, I bought a house, I had a family, and I kind of had to back out of the partnership. And my dad is the sole owner of this car at this point. But originally, it was supposed to be we'll both share the driving of this. And I think when it came out of the shop and you sat in it, you just said, I don't like this at all. I don't like getting in and out of this. I don't like the feeling of the seating. You didn't like a lot of it. And
Yeah.
it kind of just went down the road of me being the sole driver.
So you get nervous when you get to the line a little bit? Is there that sort of anticipation?
There's
and-
always anticipation. Like
Okay.
there's always the butterflies in the stomach. Like
Yeah.
if that ever goes away, I think it's a bad sign. Like you should have some anticipation when you're going to drive one of these. I'm more nervous, like actual nerves, at the beginning of the season. And once I get a couple passes under my belt, it reminds me, like, no, you know how to drive this. You've had the beautifully smooth passes, and you've had tons of hairy passes, and you've got every one of them down the track.
Right.
So put the bad thoughts out of your mind. Here's the reminder. You can do it again. And then once that pass is under my belt, then it's kind of like, okay, now it's just back to the normal butterflies.
Yeah, that's right. And you guys, have you had any close calls or just?
No, to be honest, I mean, like out of all of the people that race AA gas, I would say that like 90% of them have put a car into the wall at a minimum, or put a car on its side, or had a really bad life-altering accident. One of those three categories, and we haven't had any of those. Like, knock on all the wood.
Certainly, yeah.
It always, I think about it all the time, that like my chances of having one of those accidents, whether it's a minor bang up that's not minor at all because it's still going to be a $20,000 rebuild, or something that changes your life forever.
Right.
My odds of that happening never go down, just because every year I continue to do this.
Yeah.
Right. The risk is still always there, but for, I try and be not conservative with my driving, but I don't ever try and push it out of like ego or need to win or any of that. You know what I mean? Like there's a fine line that you dance to know what you can ask the car to do, and when you're being stupid and you're asking the car to do something that's going to bite you in the ass. And I think I've been able to ride that line pretty well for 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's always a chance that you're not quick enough, or you stay in it a little longer than you should, or there's a parts breakage that could cause you to have an accident. We know someone who went down the track not realizing he was sitting on top of his throttle return springs.
Oh.
After having worked on the carb. That kind of thing can end your life, right? So it's like it could always happen for any variety of reasons. So.
Yeah, stuck throttles are definitely one of the top factors in bad accidents, right? And again, I've also seen that in dirt track. Gets caught under the breather, and boy, there's too much engine power to stop it at that point, right? That engine just keeps pulling. So we know a little bit about the bow tie. We know we have a glide behind it, and then what do we find when we go to the back of the car?
Same rear end as that, right there.
Oh, okay.
Pretty close to what you see sitting
Well, nobody can see that, but I'll get a shot of that right there. So
yeah, it's a sheet metal Ford 9-inch with a strange center section, 456 gears.
456.
Yeah.
Okay. And what size axles and that are you running?
35 spline.
Okay.
And a 33 tall tire, 10.5-inch tread.
33 tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the tire I'm looking at over there right now, right?
They're all wrapped in saran wrap in a nice cool basement.
Oh yes, you're keeping them fine, eh?
Yeah, I mean, at $800 US a pair, and if we get 50 passes out of them, then we're doing good.
That's stretching them.
Yeah.
50 passes, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And how many passes in a full season, roughly? I'm doing your tire math.
25 to 35.
25 to 35, yeah.
Oh, okay.
35.
Depending on how many races, all depends how many races we go to.
Yeah.
Like this year, we'd love to do 6.
Okay.
Okay, so if we get
5 passes a weekend.
5 passes a weekend, that's 30 passes for a season.
Yeah.
Right. So But, you know, I mean, ultimately, although we'd be able to put a brand new pair of tires on it every spring. But
Yeah.
we do stretch them I mean, we put new ones on going into Labor Day.
Okay.
So really, they only have one weekend on them.
And it's not like your tires are the exact same for that whole entire lifespan of them, right? Like your tires start to go away at a certain point, and then you start questioning, okay, well, is it my tuning to the track? Are the tires starting to go away? Do I need to make changes and chase this, or am I chasing a problem that's never going to go away until I change the tires?
Right.
So if you can be very like just consistent with starting every season with a new pair of slicks, then you may have that consistent beautiful period while the tire is new and just broken in without having to chase the problems that come near the end of a tire's lifespan.
Right.
But it's all dollars and cents. So it's,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
what
mean, we've lost races trying to get 5 extra hits out of those tires.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, and just lost them horrendously. I mean, the wind was there for us, and you know, we just
The
couldn't.
tire cost you.
The
yeah,
tire
you start
cost-
spinning
Yeah.
and pedaling.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it
And I mean,
starts
you can
that up. That's a lot of
compensate.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can compensate for it. I mean, you can stiffen the shocks up a little bit, but you know what? What you gain on the start, you lose on the top end. You know, because you know it might give you that little bit more of a hit,
Yeah.
but at the top end with the stiff shocks, then the car's starting to sashay around, and we don't like that either. So
Yeah, 'cause you almost kind of want to drag the rear end as far out as you can, eh?
yeah,
As it starts to unload the back suspension, that's when the car starts to get more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. All that weight wants to become neutral in the chassis again, right? Like
Right.
all that load that you put on those rear tires right at the hit, you have to. You're gonna just come to terms with the fact that you're gonna lose that load as you go down the track. But giving up that traction as you go down track is like that's the big part of the science of the tuning, right?
Certainly,
that's
yeah.
why they make air dump shocks so that you can leave the line with a certain load on the shock, and then halfway down track you can dump the air out and change the ride height.
Oh,
Right?
okay. Yeah,
So
I
if
wasn't
you're-
aware of that.
If you're racing a
that's pro stock, pro mod.
yeah, if you're racing
yeah,
a 4,000
yeah.
horsepower Pro Mod, that's how a guy with a 4,000 horsepower Pro Mod in the same tire we're running can
Right.
make the car go 370s.
Plus, they
Okay.
got a big
Right.
wing on the back that's giving them all kinds of
Yeah.
downforce.
A big wing.
Yeah.
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 Well, I've noticed it. I kind of, I watch a lot of racing, and like I like the street racing that's available as well to watch. And I mean, let's face it, there's some guys that have never been to the track that actually can make cars go down pretty quick
Heck
too,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I've really noticed that it's almost like they've got 100 sandbags in the back of every car now. It looks like they're all sitting on the rear bumper now.
Yeah.
I guess that's all about the traction, eh?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like Aaron said earlier, tire technology is just amazing now.
Yeah.
It really is. So, yeah, I mean, if you're running in that class, you better be able to spend $6,000 on a set of shocks.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, get a set of Penske shocks or something like that. Like we just run the Summit
Summit racing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, mind you, they're dual adjustable shocks on the back. There's probably 35 different combinations we can set them at.
Okay.
And the same with the rear suspension. It's a 4-link. That's 286 different holes, combinations you can use. But once you find neutral in that car, the only bar you touch is the bottom right on the passenger side.
Okay.
You might just turn it 1/6 of a turn,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And
Top
what?
bar.
Is it-
Top bar.
I thought it was bottom.
And by that, what you're trying to do is work with the torque that the chassis.
What it does is it keeps rear steer from playing apart
Okay.
in the car, right? Like it keeps your car straight,
Yeah.
right?
You're
And
lengthening and shortening basically one side of the car. You're putting a little bit of load and unload on that.
Right.
The other end,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the shocks, same thing. The guy who built our chassis, he's always there at the track with us,
Yeah.
and he goes out and he'll watch a few cars run down the track, and then he'll come back and say, "We need one more click in the shock,
Yeah. You can
right?
see
One
it,
more
eh?
stiff, or one more soft."
Yeah.
And that's it. One click, maybe two, but that's it.
So you say that this is an all custom built chassis.
Right.
So the gentleman, I don't know if you want to name him or not.
Oh, it's Summit Metal.
Oh,
Grant
okay.
Kimbers.
So he built this to spec to match the body, to match the powertrain, and I'm guessing he's obviously renowned, right?
He's pretty good at his craft.
Yeah.
He also races in AA.
Okay. Yeah.
He's basically just like us.
He doesn't advertise building race cars a lot, but the cars that he does work on, I mean, he's a wizard.
Yeah.
He's an absolute, like, the Grant is, there's two people in our world of racing that are as crucial for our success as just you funding and being a part of it, and me being able to get in the car and drive it. Without these two dudes, it wouldn't matter. And Grant Kimber, who built the car, and John Rossiter, who built the engine, those two dudes have just made everything happen for us as far as helping us figure out how to set the car up. John helping us keep the engine alive and making enough power to win, but not ever damaging the engine or running it in an unsafe manner. Without those two dudes, like I try and glean every ounce of education from both of those dudes that I can, because they're wizards at what they do. You know, we're two guys
You
that
couldn't
have
meet
fun.
two nicer guys.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Right. And both of them race, or just?
Yeah, Grant has raced his whole life and at varying levels of bracket racing and stuff like that. And John Roster he's been racing his entire life. He's in his mid 70s and has been building race engines and for everywhere from nitro funny car, alcohol funny car to gassers back in the 60s.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
done it all. He's had his fingers
He's
in
owned
everything you can imagine.
Wow.
He's owned
Yeah.
nitro funny cars. He's owned alcohol funny cars.
Yeah, and those are some pretty mean machines too. Yeah.
And he just works out of a little one-man shop in Mississauga.
Wow. Eh?
So, yeah.
Everything he is an engine rebuilder by trade, self-employed his whole life. But everything from a numbers matching Copo Camaro engine to I want to build a 3,500 horsepower Pontiac Pro Mod engine. Sign the check.
He's there, eh?
Yep.
Yeah. Eh?
Well
Wow.
built. Yep.
Yeah, I know there's some guys that are just wicked at their craft.
Yeah,
and,
he's one of them.
you know, so the magic number, how many horses are we talking in this thing?
I asked John when we first built the engine, are we going to dyno it and see what kind of power he makes? And he said, why?
Why?
Why? Because at the end of the day, like, you're going to look at the spark plugs to see whether the car's happy. You're going to see what kind of power it makes, and you're just going to keep the car running happy.
Right.
And who cares how much power it makes? Did it make enough to win? Then that's fine.
Yeah.
Is there a little bit of room for us to make a little more when there's someone right on our heels? Yes, there is. Are we at that point where we're gonna, start, detonating, or you're gonna start melting pistons or melting, pushing out head gaskets? No, we're never going near that.
Right.
So it's a fine balance, and who knows? Probably, I mean, in the guessing range, we could probably tune it anywhere from 1,100 to 1,250, 1,300 in that area.
Yeah.
But that's really a guess based off of performance.
Blower.
Right there.
Yeah.
Right? Take a couple teeth away out of there. Spins the blower faster.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you how you get a few more out of it, but that definitely, shove more air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Because engines like cool air.
Sure.
Right? And the more you're going to spin that blower, the more you're going to heat the air up.
Yeah.
The injectors are, years ago when we went to the stack injection, I remember it boggled me as we watched this guy come down and explain it to us and help us with it. But after a while, I thought, why would I ever use a carburetor again?
Yeah.
Because they are so simple. They're completely backwards to a carburetor, where, if you want your car to go faster with a carburetor, you use bigger jets.
Yeah.
If you want your car to go faster with an injection, you use a smaller jet.
Increase
Because
pressure.
the jet is on the return side. So if you're letting less fuel get returned to the fuel cell, you're pushing more through the injector.
Okay. Yeah.
Totally opposite.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Delivery is reversed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I never thought about that. And you said there was only 20 sets of those made?
200.
200.
Oh, 200 sets.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Actually, you know what? There's a Hemi that runs with us. He has one.
Oh, is that right? Eh?
And I had another one, and I sold it to the guy who built our chassis.
Oh, really?
So probably next year he might be. Right now he runs the big scoop with the butterflies in the front.
Yeah.
It's called a bug catcher,
Yeah.
right? But he's thinking of going to this thing here just for more air.
You're just wide open in the front of this, eh?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Just all about taking it in.
Yeah, the butterflies lay flat inside that injector.
Oh, okay.
And they're transverse, so they open like this here,
Okay.
lengthwise, right? But
And does this start on its own, or do you have to actually add fuel?
we tickle it.
Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
tickle it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And they look like custom headers.
Stainless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was funny when he built them for me. he said, "Oh, geez," he said, "John," he said, "I must have went through 3 cartons of smokes and, and a mile of welding wire trying to form, which way I should bend them." And
Right.
but yeah, and they all go on individually.
Oh, they are actually individual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, it definitely looks like a motor out job to get the headers off.
No, it's not.
That's what
No.
it feels like sometimes.
Well, you got to hold your tongue just about right to get them in there,
I'm
because
sure, eh?
really the 4 of them got to go in there and go in loosely.
Yeah.
So they're all happy together, and then once they're happy, then you start bolting them down.
I've spent an hour sitting there trying to put these headers on and just had to walk away. My dad comes over and just patiently twists them and knows which order they go in, and it's a John Reid job putting the headers on.
Oh, and I've had Grant do it for me. It frustrated me too.
Time for you to make a video.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, and then if you look along the bottom of the pipes, those are just a locator. And once the pipes are all bolted up, then they slide over the 4 tubes.
Oh,
And lock
okay.
them all down in place. And
Wow. That's kind of a work of art, those, eh?
yeah,
They are.
for sure.
Now with the blower, like those were originally built when we had the injected engine making 800 horsepower, and now that we're making a bunch more, it would be nice to have a bigger diameter tube.
Sure.
It'll never happen because those are beautiful,
Yeah,
and there's only
right.
so much room to work
Yeah.
with. You putting a bigger tube would be very
Oh.
difficult.
And you know what? Another set of stainless headers would be in the $3,000 range.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're going to have to go talk to Jeff Lutz, eh? Is that a 2-inch tube I'm looking at?
Yeah.
It is, yeah, okay. And yeah, you can bolt them right on without adapters and everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't even run a gasket.
And changing the
Oh, is that
spark
right,
plugs,
eh?
yeah, changing the spark plugs is no big deal. Which with a lot of headers, changing spark plugs can be an absolute nightmare where
Yeah.
you have 6 different cut down wrenches and sockets, and
Absolutely.
these it's just
These you just get in there with an
extension on a ratchet.
I've got 2 special wrenches in my toolbox
Yeah.
for, because we're only allowed to run Schoenfeld headers and,
Yeah.
not trying to take a dig at them, but I had to run Shorty spark plugs as well in it
Oh,
because they're just,
Jeez.
a couple spots where there's no clearance whatsoever, right? Yeah. Oh, that's a great rig. And do you have to change spark plugs in between runs, or are you just checking for burn? or-
You know what? We pulled number 5 and number 6 out after each pass
Yeah,
just to have a look at them.
yeah.
But you know what? A set of plugs usually, we'll get a season out of them.
Oh, is that right? That's pretty good then.
Yeah.
Generally, like we're changing the plugs. When you run blower and alcohol, you'll have enough cylinder temperature to actually burn the cadmium coating off the plug.
Okay.
And that's where we want to be. We want to be burning the cadmium.
Yeah.
But there's only so much cadmium on the plug to burn before you've lost your visual cue of what is happening.
Right.
So it's not that you're like wearing the plug out, like you put 70,000 kilometers on a copper plug or something like that in
Yeah.
a regular car. We're changing it because like, well, we need the cad back to see how much we're burning off.
Right.
So that's kind of why we change
And
it.
you look at the heat signature on the strap,
Right.
right? So, it because it chases up the strap with the heat.
That's right.
Yeah.
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 And I'm guessing that you guys aren't just literally 2-man crew. I know in the video I saw you got somebody adjusting the wheelie bars at the back, and
That's
you
our
making
chassis
sure
back.
Aaron doesn't back up over them. And
Yeah.
Yep.
uh,
I've driven away from him a couple times, left him standing there with the tape measure going, what's he doing? Where's he going? I'm not done. Never run over him though, thank God.
well, I see your dad there with the fist up. I think he's
Yeah.
telling you, hey, don't move,
Oh,
right?
100%. No, we have our signals, and I need him to communicate that to me.
Yeah.
And it's there's a lot going on there that doesn't necessarily look like much, but it's a system,
But you know
Oh,
what?
absolutely.
It's a pretty smooth operation now. We've been at it for long enough that
Yeah.
like I'll walk out once I pull the pin on the throttle, because we only do the throttle's only open a 3/16 of an inch. That's all it's open during the burnout.
Oh, is that right?
It
It's just
won't open anymore.
barely crack the throttle blades, and that's enough to do about an 8,000 RPM burnout.
Oh, wow.
Because when you
eh?
have no load on
Okay.
it. Like,
And that because we have no electronics, we have no way of limiting the engine, the RPM.
Okay.
So in the burnout, I mean, you can send it to the moon every time.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you look on the side of it, you can see a little pin in there, and that's the limiter. That
I
keeps,
see that with
that
the
keeps
ring,
the
with
throttle.
the ring on it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
that
you
keeps
keep
the
it
throttle
locked out for safety.
Yeah, and once he backs up from his burnout, then
Yeah.
I'll walk up to the car, pull that pin,
Yeah.
give him the fist, and I can walk away from him because he knows he's not moving until I call him forward.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I'll just walk up to the line, And when Grant gives me the signal that he's happy with the wheelie bars,
Yeah.
come on up.
I know I talked to a guy, he had a beautiful 68 Camaro, and he said, you almost need to sit in your driveway and practice your routine because you need to know exactly what to do. And he says, it doesn't sound like a lot of things, but if they don't work like a clock, it just doesn't work, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I do it all the time. I use my whole routine from the time that he gives me the, like, okay, ready to start it, I'm going to squirt. I go through it step by step. I visualize it in my head.
Yeah.
And I've done that for a few years now because I've heard that is something that is, it will build a muscle memory without having to do it, kind of thing. Like,
Right.
Experts say that that's a good technique to get used to something. But I've tried to do it in situations that are not drag racing related at all. You're like having a root canal done, and I'm just trying to focus on my routine at the races. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. It's like I'm forgetting things. I would have crashed that run.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think a root canal's a good thing to be thinking about on a ladder. And have you red lighted a lot of times, or?
It's nearly impossible to red light with this class. Like, if you are red lighting in this class, it's because you are anticipating the light coming on and you're jumping.
Right.
Right. It's
fast.
It's so fast.
It's a 400 Pro tree.
Yeah.
So you get one yellow light and that's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just yellow.
Right.
Green,
Yeah. Yeah. And if you watch those yellow lights come on, you're late.
Oh, is that right?
So
that's how fast.
No,
Just
green.
as a-
If you're waiting for green.
Oh, if you see the green, you're done.
I mean,
The other guy's
You
not.
should be seeing the green as you're driving by it.
Right.
I'm sitting there on the line, just staring at those three ambers, and I'm focusing on keeping my right foot steady and then backing my left foot off of the brake as far as I can. Release the brake, release the brake, release the brake. A little bit of pressure. And the second I see those ambers, jumping on the gas.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky to break the 1.0 mark. Like a 0.1, 0.11, 0.12. That's like an average good light for me. If I could get an 090 or an 080 or something like that, it would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can keep your reaction time to the first number being 0, you're doing good.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
And there are other guys in the class that I race with that it grinds my teeth because I see their side of the time slip. It's like, how do you do that? How do you cut these lights? What's your trick? It's
Well, it surprised me when you told me it was a foot brake leave at how fast it leaves. Like in the video, I just went, Jesus, like it's gone. Yeah, just gone. Period.
our 60-foot times are very consistent, but that is completely separate from my reaction time as a driver.
Right.
So by the time I get my ass in gear and get my foot on the gas, it's gonna give you a 115, 60 foot or better. So it always looks very impressive. But if you look at the time slip, you might go, oh, he was sleeping.
Well, I won't look at the time slip because I'm impressed with what I saw. So, yeah, like that for sure. I expected it to be a trans brake, honestly, at least in what I saw. But
we're not allowed a lot of electronics. Like, people will ask, what do you have for electronics? And I just tell them we have a magneto and a kill switch. That's this engine's only about a 10-to-1.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can
put a blower, push it
at
on
75% with a blower.
Yeah.
So once you're squeezing all that in there, you might have what's equivalent to a 17 or 18.
Right. Yeah. So what's the outlook overall for this? Like, obviously you enjoy this, but family life is also a big deal. And you have kids as well.
Yeah, I've got a 5-year-old son.
Okay. So yeah, that taxing on a family.
It can be. My wife's amazing. She's always supported me being away at the races. It might be 3 or 4 summers of the year, but she's always held down the fort magnificently. So having a partner at home that supports you, being able to go away and party with your friends and have a great time racing while she looks after the kid and then gets the groceries without me on Saturday and all that type of stuff. That's number one. But
she's pretty cool. She's a hot rodder too.
Okay. Dad's got to give me a lot of approval there.
But yeah, as far as outlook goes, it's one day at a time, one summer at a time.
Yeah.
We'll try and do this as long as we can, but life changes, health changes, money changes, everything changes. So every year we just hope to be able to do it for another year.
That's right.
We might still be doing it when my son's old enough to want to be a big part of it, and like I was when I was 9, 10 years old getting into it. So it's just let's just keep praying for everybody staying together.
Absolutely.
Stay healthy.
And stay healthy.
And definitely being surrounded by it matters, right? Like I watch a lot of people, family-wise, grow up into these sports that are, you can't help but to have an admiration for it and a love for it, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's good that you got the support. I mean, you know, Dad'll be 60 soon, so.
I can't remember 60. Maybe Dad will be 60 soon.
Dad'll be 60. Yeah.
So I'm not quite closer to 60 than you, but
Yeah.
I'm not quite.
At least yours is in the windshield, mine's in the mirror.
Yeah. And 25 years you said you've been into this, right?
yeah, it's
So-
ridiculous to say because I'm only 35, but I mean, I was 10 years old when I started junior racing, and
Wow.
I took a little bit of time off when I was doing an apprenticeship as a mechanic, and just it was too much cars in my life, and it was stressing me out at the time of working all day and then working on cars at night and have the races on the weekend. And I took a step back for a few years and still pictured with my dad when he had the Opel. I was still at the races, but I didn't race myself for a few years.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then we got the dragster, bought that dragster, and that turned into this. 25 years.
Yeah, you wouldn't trade it in. Like,
No.
you guys are happy with this class, eh? Like, this,
Yeah, I'm pretty happy being where we are.
yeah. Well, you definitely built a pretty big name for yourself because I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people know the jar car. That's for sure.
It's,
We're good at marketing.
it always amazes me. Yeah, it's the t-shirts and hats, buddy.
It's easy to say, jar car, and it looks like a Hot Wheels. Everybody remembers it. If you see this thing at the track, and especially if you've never seen racing before,
Yeah.
and you know you see a lot of dragsters and they're fast and they're impressive, and then you see this thing that looks like a car you see in a Hot Wheels packaging at Walmart.
That's correct.
And it's crazy loud, and it's faster than you think it's going to be, and it's got this easy to remember name, jar car,
Yeah.
that sticks in your head somehow. You know?
Certainly,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's a great looking little machine. I gotta say that the paint looks like a red, but it looks like a red primer.
It is, yeah, red oxide.
Is that what the color's
Well,
called?
right now there's 3 different color of primers on the car.
Oh, no.
The original paint job was sealed, like it's not
Yeah.
primered, right? It's the color of the primer, but it's a sealed
But
paint job.
yeah, but it was red oxide.
It is red oxide,
Okay.
but then there's been a lot of touch-ups over the years that are just primer.
Oh,
We've,
yeah.
you know, we've had our rear fender rattle off, so we've had to reglue it.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
you can't find that red oxide, so you go to Canadian Tire, you buy a spray bomb of muddy brown.
Right, muddy brown. There's a color for you.
Yeah.
I like the fact that, you know, a lot of the graphics on the car are all hand painted.
Everything's hand painted.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we brought this body home, it was sitting in the back corner in a garage down near Philadelphia.
Wow.
And it's an Anderson Industries body. At the time, it was 46 years old. It was delaminating. It had big holes in it everywhere.
Right.
It didn't have a roof panel. It didn't have a trunk lid. And the front end was newer than the body itself. The doors were a little newer than the body itself. So nothing really lined up well.
Yeah.
And I said to Aaron, I said, you know what? I said, this car's never going to be pretty. Right? It'll never be that gorgeous, perfect lines and all that. But I said, let's build it like they did in the 50s. You know, when a guy went drag racing, he didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, even if he could brush paint a car and make it look one color, he was doing well.
You're right.
You know, and I said, you know what? It's going to the races, and it's going there as a 1950s primered hot rod. That's what it is. Other than that, like our sponsors, BTN, right?
Oh, who are they?
No, we have a few small sponsors that help us, but actually help the group too. So it's
Yeah.
you know, you're really our one lone sponsor, I think. All of the rest of the sponsors I've picked up, I've kind of directed them towards the whole group.
Okay.
So, you know, everybody in the group gets a little wee bit of money their way to help them out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we've got an ice cream shop downtown in the Falls that have helped us out.
Oh, yes. I'm all familiar for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ronnie Don's. And this year, RT Pizza
Oh,
will be
okay.
on board with us.
Yeah.
Who else do we have?
Dennis at Commercial Auto Electric, he's helped us out.
He's helped us out with
Okay.
batteries.
Yeah, I know Dennis.
Battery supply.
Larry Kerrigan, Top Notch Collectibles,
Oh, okay.
has helped us out as a group.
The biggest two have to be John and Grant, because these are guys that are, for John, it's his full-time gig building race engines, and for Grant, he's a full-time fabricator, self-employed.
Yeah.
And if they had even billed us $1 for every hour they had spent helping us, the budget would be triple. So
Right.
the fact that they are always willing to help us figure out how to get the program going, and when there's little things, hey, can you do a little TIG weld on this? Most of the time it doesn't come with a bill. Like they're
Right.
just they're great to us.
Oh,
They're like
amazing.
family. So like, even though we have their names on the car, but like and it may not be a money sponsorship, but at the end of the day, they're our biggest
They're
sponsors to help
huge,
us
too,
help us
yeah.
get it down the
Yeah.
road.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So every now and then we buy him a beer and a steak.
I'm sure they appreciate that though. I know I would.
I mean, when we race at Cayuga, like they basically book us in as a show.
Yeah.
Like these cars, the A-Gas cars, the True North Gasser cars, they go up and they bracket race each other
Okay.
as part of the show.
Okay.
And I mean, doesn't matter if it's bracket gassers or double A gassers. The fans are just amazed with the body styles and the old schoolness of it all. Eh?
Yeah.
And I mean, when we first started going out, when TMP called us and said, "Can you come to Cayuga and put on the first year was like, can you just put 4 cars together, a 4-car show as part of our Nitro National show?"
Wow.
Right, we get up there and there's 15,000 people in the stands.
Yeah.
And you're coming back down the return road and they're 4 deep on the fence.
Right.
And you're all cheering as you're
Yeah.
going, and you think, this is what it used to be like. It back in the 60s, like if you go on to the Sunday Niagara
Yeah.
website, and Dean Johnson, who was the owner of that track, he posts all these old pictures.
Okay.
And every weekend, those stands were just shoulder to shoulder.
Incredible.
Just
Yeah,
packed. Eh?
that's
And
amazing, eh?
You don't see, you're right, you don't see that
You see it
anymore.
once a year now, essentially.
Yeah.
You see a big show where you
Yeah.
get a big crowd once a year.
I mean, Cayuga's starting to get a feel a little bit, because now they run, they'll have the funny cars, the nitro cars, the jets
Yeah.
on May 24th weekend, Canada Day weekend, Labor Day weekend. So on Saturday nights of those weekends, there's always a really good crowd in the stand.
Right.
Nostalgia
Well,
Racing is a cotton top.
A cotton top. Is that what that's
Cotton top racing. Everybody's white haired.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I really appreciate both you guys giving the time for this, for one thing.
No worries.
I definitely have learned a little bit more than I knew when I got here, and I mean, you got a heck of a machine here, you guys.
We
I
do,
mean,
yeah.
You really do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, that might be an issue then, yeah. You got to be able to kind of twist and
I don't know if you should film it. That doesn't seem like.
491.
Say 491.
Right on, baby.